Thank you all for allowing me to come and speak. The Hidden Town Project is something that I started right away in December of 2016. I think many of you are aware that Old Salem was one of the first heritage sites in the nation to start to speak about the African American and the enslaved narrative through St. Philip's Church. And that was in the mid to late 1990s. And there's been a good bit of scholarship. What Hidden Town does is it combines all of that scholarship and makes a kind of contextual, comprehensive program about it. And so with that in mind, our next steps are that we want to locate where all of the freestanding enslaved dwellings were throughout all of Salem. Our research thus far has shown us that there were over 40 freestanding enslaved dwellings. And then there were more domestic slaves who lived within various buildings. And in fact, many of those buildings exist now, have been restored, and are either privately owned or part of Old Salem's interpreted space. One thing that I think we all understand is that the Moravians had a very complicated history with slavery. Starting off at the very beginning, really having a difficult kind of moral objection of how someone could be spiritually equal, but still being held in human bondage. What happens is, through our research, we find that right before the Civil War, the percentage of the enslaved in Salem was around 20% of the total population. What's interesting is that's about the same as the rest of North Carolina. So what that tells us is the Moravians coming down here, really what was the boonies, starting off kind of separating themselves, certainly spiritually but also socially in terms of slavery, eventually before the Civil War become just like the rest of North Carolina. And so that's a really important point for us. Our goal at Old Salem Museums and Gardens is to tell fully all of the narratives and to kind of bring it throughout the entire district. Up to this point, it's really been held primarily at St. Philip's Church. So of our 440,000 people that walk Main Street, only very few of them were understanding the lives and legacy of the Afro-Moravian enslaved, because they maybe didn't go to St. Philip's Church because it's on Church Street and it's a little bit out of the way. So already what you'll see if you go through Old Salem is that there are Hidden Town text boxes in all of our interpreted spaces. We're now fully interpreting Peter Oliver, who was an enslaved man who later bought his own freedom. Our goal in the Hidden Town Project is not only to locate all of those spots where the enslaved dwellings were, but to form a descendant community that can really act as an advisory committee for Old Salem in how we can more fully tell this story. Now, understanding the complexities and the nuances of this project, we formed a Moravian Advisory Committee. We have formed a National Advisory Committee, and I formed a Staff Advisory Committee. So as you can tell, we're not moving into this program kind of haphazardly. We really understand that there are lots of stakeholders in this discussion. And I would say that nationally, organizations and historians are already taking note of Salem and the Hidden Town Project. Now, why is that? Because Salem and its enslaved story had a lot to do with urban slavery. Now, urban slavery is very different than what we're used to hearing about, which is the plantation form of slavery. And not a lot is known about urban slavery. Why? Because most urban centers are now built up. Mobile, Alabama, Washington, D.C., Louisiana spots, except Salem. Why? Because the Moravians pushed the municipal services and the non-sacred aspects to Winston. Downtown is a few blocks that way. So what that means is Salem has the potential to be the most important archaeological site for urban slavery in the United States. Now that is a really significant, important thing. And so already we've been asked to go up to the Chipstone Foundation in Milwaukee to talk about the Hidden Town Project. I went back up to New York City to talk to several funders and historians about the Hidden Town Project. And I only share these kind of small detail bits to understand that it's not just Winston-Salem that's paying attention to this project. It really is a national kind of discourse. And I think all of us know, both at the university level as well as individual sites and cities, that are discussing the relationship of the enslaved, and whether it's through Confederate memorials and statues and names, and how those stories are actually told, that is on the front page of the paper. And so thank you for letting me come here and just share that little bit of information, a kind of conceptual basis for the Hidden Town Project. And then next Wednesday, I actually have slides and images where we have been doing a mapping project that shows every spot in Salem where there was an enslaved dwelling or a slave person was living inside of the buildings, and it's a pretty amazing thing. And then I also have had interns and staff going through over 5,000 photographs looking for any relationship to the enslaved. And so I'm going to be showing you some of those things. And then in addition, we've also been looking at both Old Salem's collections items as well as Wachovia Historical Society's collections items that have anything to do with the enslaved story. And so I go back to the very beginning of this conversation. Our goal is to comprehensively tell the nuanced story of the Afro-Moravian enslaved and how that fits into the larger context of the United States. So thank you, and I look forward to speaking with all of you next Wednesday, and please bring your questions. You can also email me anytime, and I most likely will turn right around and email you right back. Thank you so much.